There was a quiet old man named Baba Musa. Most people barely noticed him. He wore worn-out clothes, lived in a tiny mud hut at the edge of the village, and kept to himself. When he did speak, it was in a gentle, calm voice that seemed almost out of place amidst the panic and despair. One afternoon, as a group of villagers gathered around the chief to discuss what little they had left, Baba Musa shuffled over, clutching a small old bag. He listened quietly, nodding as people spoke of their fears and their hopes. Finally, he took a small step forward. "Let me help," he said softly. The villagers turned to him, some with pity, others with annoyance. A young man named Nuru crossed his arms and frowned. "Help us? With what, Baba Musa? You don't have anything. You live in that tiny hut and wear the same old clothes every day. How could you help us?" Baba Musa just smiled. "Meet me by the big tree at sunset. All of you. I promise I'll help." The crowd murmured, some laughing, others shaking their heads. But they were curious. What could an old man like Baba Musa possibly have to offer? By sunset, the entire village had gathered under the big tree. Some came out of curiosity, others out of desperation, hoping for even a small miracle. The children sat at the front, their eyes wide with wonder, as the adults stood behind them, whispering and exchanging doubtful glances. Baba Musa stood at the center, his old bag still clutched in his hand. He looked at each face, his own calm and steady. When everyone was quiet, he took a deep breath and reached into his bag. The crowd held its breath, wondering what he would pull out. Maybe some food or a small pouch of water. To everyone's shock, Baba Musa pulled out a thick stack of crisp banknotes. The money looked new and untouched, glowing in the dim light of the setting sun. Gasps filled the air, and the villagers stared, unable to believe what they were seeing. One woman covered her mouth in disbelief. "Baba Musa, how?" Baba Musa only smiled and placed the money on the ground in front of him. "This is for all of you, to buy food, to get water from the nearby town, to help us survive until the rains come back." No one moved. They were frozen, stunned. Baba Musa, the poor old man, had more money than they'd ever seen. The chief stepped forward, his voice barely a whisper. "Baba Musa, where did this come from?" The old man simply shook his head. "That's not important. What matters is that you all take what you need, but use it wisely." Over the next few days, Baba Musa's gift transformed the village. Food was brought in from nearby towns, and water tanks were set up to store what they had. Children laughed and played, their bellies full for the first time in weeks. The people were grateful, but a deep curiosity remained. Where had Baba Musa gotten all that money? One evening, Nuru, the young man who had doubted Baba Musa, decided to visit him. He knocked on the door of the old man's hut, and Baba Musa invited him in. The hut was simple, just a small mat on the floor, a pot for cooking, and a few clothes hanging on a hook. There was nothing to suggest that Baba Musa was anything but a poor, humble man. "Baba Musa," Nuru began, shifting uncomfortably, "I don't mean to pry, but where did all that money come from?" Baba Musa chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Do you really want to know, Nuru?" Nuru nodded, his curiosity getting the better of him. Baba Musa leaned back, his gaze distant. "Let's just say, I wasn't always the man you see today. I've seen things, done things, and been to places you could only dream of. But now, I'm just a simple man, helping where I can." Nuru left the hut that night more confused than ever. Who was Baba Musa, really? Word spread quickly through the village. People began to make guesses about Baba Musa's past. Some said he had been a rich trader who had lost everything in a distant land. Others believed he had once been a king who chose to live among them in disguise. The children created wild tales about Baba Musa, saying he had magic powers or was sent by the gods to save them. Through it all, Baba Musa only smiled and went about his days quietly. He continued to live simply, even though he had given the village more than they could ever repay. The chief, however, grew concerned. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Baba Musa than met the eye. One evening, he decided to confront the old man. "Baba Musa," he began, "you have done so much for us. But I must know, who are you really?" Baba Musa looked at the chief, his face calm. "I am who you see before you, chief. A simple man. Nothing more, nothing less." The chief felt a chill run down his spine. There was something about Baba Musa's gaze that was unsettling, as if he held a secret too big for any of them to understand. One day, a wealthy businessman from the city arrived in the village. He was dressed in fine clothes and rode in a sleek car, which attracted the attention of everyone. As he stepped out, he scanned the crowd, his eyes landing on Baba Musa. A look of recognition flashed across his face, and he hurried over. "Sir," the businessman exclaimed, bowing his head with deep respect. "I didn't expect to find you here, living like this." The villagers watched in shock, trying to understand what was happening. Baba Musa sighed, placing a gentle hand on the businessman's shoulder. "I told you I wanted a simple life. That's why I left." The businessman looked at him, his eyes wide with disbelief. "But you're one of the richest men in the country. Why would you live here, pretending to be poor?" Gasps echoed through the crowd as the truth sank in. Baba Musa wasn't just wealthy. He was a billionaire who had chosen to hide his riches and live among them, helping in secret. The villagers were stunned, struggling to comprehend what this meant. Baba Musa smiled softly at them all. "I didn't want to be known for my wealth. I wanted to be known for my heart." The villagers were silent, their eyes fixed on Baba Musa. The revelation that he was a billionaire was too overwhelming. How could a man who lived so simply, in a small hut with barely anything, have such wealth? They began to whisper, each one trying to make sense of it. An older woman, Mama Kemi, approached Baba Musa with a look of both gratitude and confusion. "Baba Musa, all these years, we thought you were poor. Why didn't you tell us?" Baba Musa chuckled, his voice warm but calm. "What would it have changed, Mama Kemi? Would you have treated me differently if you knew?" Mama Kemi lowered her head, realizing the answer was yes. They all would have treated him differently. They might have only cared about his wealth, not who he was as a person. "Baba Musa, thank you for everything you've done for us," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Baba Musa only nodded, looking out at the crowd with kindness in his eyes. "Sometimes it is better to see people's true hearts before they know who you are." The village was never the same after that day. Some people felt embarrassed for how they had treated Baba Musa, dismissing him and doubting his ability to help. Others were simply grateful, now understanding the depth of his generosity. The children continued to make up stories, this time imagining him as a hidden king or a powerful wizard in disguise. Baba Musa's humble hut became a place of gathering. Villagers came to him for advice, not only about money but about life. They began to trust him with their troubles, seeking his wisdom. Baba Musa listened to each one patiently, offering guidance when needed and a gentle smile when words weren't enough. But he continued to live simply, never flaunting his wealth. He even stopped giving money, telling people that true wealth wasn't about riches but about kindness and respect. Nuru, the young man who had once mocked Baba Musa, spent many evenings sitting outside the hut, talking to him about life. Baba Musa became like a father to him, guiding him and teaching him values he'd never considered before. One evening, Baba Musa gathered the children by the big tree and shared a story of his own. He told them about a time when he was young, with dreams of becoming rich. He had worked hard, traveled far, and earned more money than he ever thought possible. But he realized that his wealth was creating distance between him and the people around him. The children listened intently, hanging on every word. "When I became wealthy, people stopped seeing me as a person," he said softly. "They only saw my money, not my heart. I came here to find a place where I could be myself, where people would see me as a person first." One of the little girls, Amina, looked up at him with big, curious eyes. "Baba Musa, Is that why you pretend to be poor?" Baba Musa nodded. "Yes, Amina, because true wealth isn't in what you have. It's in who you are." The children left that night with a lesson they would remember for a lifetime. One day, after many months of waiting, dark clouds finally gathered in the sky. The villagers looked up in awe, watching as the first drops of rain began to fall. The parched land drank it eagerly, and soon a gentle drizzle turned into a downpour. The village erupted in cheers. Children danced in the rain, laughing and shouting with joy. Women gathered buckets to catch the fresh water, and men went out to tend to the fields, hopeful that their crops would now grow strong. Baba Musa stood by his hut, watching the joyful scene with a smile. The chief approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You saved us, Baba Musa. Without your help, we would not have made it through the drought." Baba Musa simply shook his head. "You all had the strength to survive. I only gave a little help." The chief looked at him, a new respect in his eyes. "No, Baba Musa, you taught us the true meaning of wealth, and that is something we will never forget." After the rains returned, Baba Musa began to speak of leaving. The villagers were shocked, begging him to stay. But Baba Musa insisted that it was time for him to go. He had taught them what he could, and now they had to carry on without him. Nuru, who had grown close to Baba Musa, was heartbroken. "Baba Musa, why do you have to leave? We still need you here." Baba Musa placed a comforting hand on Nuru's shoulder. "My boy, you have everything you need to make this village strong. Kindness, respect, and the wisdom to help each other. You don't need me anymore." The villagers gathered to say goodbye, each one offering their thanks and blessings. Baba Musa took one last look at the village he had come to love. With a small smile and a wave, he walked down the dusty road, leaving behind a village forever changed by his kindness and wisdom. Many years later, Nuru, now a grown man, took over as the chief of the village. He continued to share Baba Musa's lessons, teaching the children about kindness, respect, and the true meaning of wealth. But Baba Musa's story didn't end there. One day, a stranger arrived in the village, carrying a letter addressed to the chief. Nuru opened it and found a note written in Baba Musa's careful handwriting. "Dear Nuru, I hope this letter finds you well. By now, you have grown into a leader for the people. I have left a small gift for you, hidden beneath the big tree where we first gathered. Use it wisely, my boy. And remember, wealth is not in riches but in the heart. With all my blessings, Baba Musa." Nuru rushed to the big tree, digging beneath its roots until he found a small, weathered chest. Inside, he found a stash of gold coins, enough to ensure the village would never struggle again. With tears in his eyes, Nuru realized that even in his departure, Baba Musa had left a legacy of generosity and kindness. Years passed, and the story of Baba Musa became a cherished tale in the village. The children grew up hearing the story of the kind old man who lived humbly, who taught them that true wealth was in the heart. Every year, on the anniversary of Baba Musa's departure, the villagers would gather under the big tree, sharing stories and memories of his kindness. They knew that Baba Musa was more than just a wealthy man in disguise. He was a teacher, a friend, and a guide who had shown them the true meaning of community. And though he was gone, his legacy lived on in their hearts, as strong as the roots of the big tree in the village square. With Baba Musa's memory deeply ingrained in his heart, Nuru led the village with a compassionate spirit. He worked tirelessly to improve the lives of his people, often saying, "What would Baba Musa do?" whenever he faced a difficult decision. He implemented changes to make sure that no one in the village went hungry or thirsty, no matter how scarce resources might become. The children, now growing up in a peaceful and prosperous village, were taught Baba Musa's lessons in school. They learned that wealth was not just what you owned, but how much good you could bring to others. Nuru made sure that everyone in the village looked after each other, just like Baba Musa had looked after them during the hard times. And as the village continued to flourish, people began to visit from nearby towns, curious to see the place where the kind, humble billionaire had once lived. Word of Baba Musa's story had traveled far, and it wasn't long before strangers from distant villages started arriving to learn more. They came hoping to understand the secret behind the village's transformation. They asked about the wise elder who had helped the village survive the drought, and the villagers shared stories of Baba Musa's kindness and wisdom. A group of young men from a nearby town came one evening, curious about Baba Musa's life and teachings. They gathered around Nuru, eager to hear every detail. Nuru spoke with pride, sharing stories of Baba Musa's humility, his quiet strength, and the way he had shown them that true wealth came from the heart. Baba Musa could have bought anything he wanted, Nuru told them, but he chose to live simply so he could help us. He taught us to see the wealth in each other. The visitors left with a newfound respect for the simple yet powerful lessons of kindness and community. And as they traveled back to their towns, they took Baba Musa's wisdom with them, spreading it like seeds that would one day bear fruit. As the years passed, Nuru established an annual festival in honor of Baba Musa. They called it the Festival of Kindness, a day when everyone in the village would give something to another, whether it was food, clothes, or just a helping hand. The villagers would gather around the big tree, telling stories of Baba Musa and remembering his lessons. During the festival, children would act out scenes from Baba Musa's life, dressing in simple clothes and pretending to be the wise, humble elder. They would reenact the time he first arrived in the village, the day he dug wells for them, and the moment he revealed his true identity. Laughter and warmth filled the air as everyone remembered Baba Musa not just as a wealthy man, but as a true friend and guide. This tradition continued year after year, becoming a beloved part of the village's history. And as the younger generations grew up, they too learned the importance of kindness, carrying Baba Musa's legacy forward. One day, a wealthy businessman visited the village. He had heard stories of Baba Musa and wanted to see for himself the place where such a wise man had lived. The businessman was astonished to find a village that was thriving, its people happy and caring for one another. He introduced himself to Nuru and explained his purpose for coming. "I came to learn from your village, to see if what I heard was true," the businessman said. "And I must say, I am impressed." Nuru welcomed him warmly, sharing Baba Musa's lessons and showing him the well that Baba Musa had built. The businessman listened attentively, his heart touched by the stories of Baba Musa's kindness. Before he left, the businessman pulled Nuru aside and handed him an envelope. "This is a gift for the village," he said. "Use it to continue Baba Musa's work." When Nuru opened the envelope later, he found a substantial sum of money, along with a note that simply read, "For the people, with love and respect." Nuru smiled, realizing that Baba Musa's kindness had inspired generosity far beyond the village. As the village continued to prosper, Nuru grew older. He passed on Baba Musa's teachings to his own children, who were eager to carry on his legacy. They would sit under the big tree, listening to their father's stories about the humble billionaire who had saved their village. Nuru's eldest son, Jela, took a special interest in Baba Musa's legacy. He often sat with the elders, asking questions and taking notes, determined to make sure every story, every lesson was preserved. He dreamed of writing down the stories so future generations could remember Baba Musa's wisdom. With his father's encouragement, Jela began collecting stories from the villagers, writing down everything they remembered about Baba Musa. He even visited nearby towns, interviewing people who had met the kind elder. Bit by bit, he pieced together the story of Baba Musa's life, preserving it for those who would come after him. After many years of work, Jela finished a book about Baba Musa's life. It was a simple book, written in the language of the people, with illustrations of the village and the big tree where they often gathered. The book told the story of a man who had hidden his wealth to reveal the true wealth of kindness. The villagers celebrated the completion of the book, gathering under the big tree as Jela read passages aloud. There was laughter and tears as they remembered Baba Musa's kindness and wisdom. The children listened with wide eyes, amazed by the story of the man who had shaped their village's future. The book became a cherished part of the village, passed down from generation to generation. Parents read it to their children, and teachers used it to teach lessons about kindness and humility. Baba Musa's story had become a part of the village's soul, a reminder of the true meaning of wealth. Many years later, as Nuru grew frail, he discovered one last surprise. Hidden in a small box beneath his bed was another letter from Baba Musa. In it, Baba Musa had written a message of farewell and hope for the future of the village. "My dear Nuru," the letter began, "if you are reading this, then I am no longer there with you. But know that my spirit lives on in every act of kindness, in every smile, in every helping hand. I have left behind a small fund, hidden in a place only you would find. Use it to keep the village strong and united." Nuru followed the instructions in the letter, uncovering a small fortune that Baba Musa had set aside for the village's future needs. With tears in his eyes, Nuru realized that even in death, Baba Musa had continued to look after them. Baba Musa's final gift ensured that the village would never go without. They used the funds to build a school, a clinic, and a community center. The village became a place where people came to learn about kindness and humility, a beacon of hope in a world often divided by wealth and status. Even generations later, Baba Musa's name was spoken with respect and love. His story was told not only in the village, but in towns and cities far beyond. People marveled at the tale of the billionaire who had chosen to live simply, using his wealth not for himself, but to help others. Baba Musa had taught them that true wealth was not in riches, but in the heart, and that lesson, above all, was the legacy he left behind.